Hello there, my name is Yorkie and welcome to an iRacing video. It's been a while since I've done one of these, but seeing as I was meant to be doing the Nürburgring 24 hours and unfortunately our team got crashed out within the first 2 hours of the race, I had the Sunday free and I decided to do some IMSA series races here at Silverstone GP, and this one turned out to be a pretty damn good one, hence why it's coming up here on the channel. Going to be driving the Porsche 911 RSR. We're going to be starting from P14 on the grid. It's a 45-minute race and we've just made a quick little adjustment to the pit stop strategy, just adjusting the fuel as we can't do basically the full length of the race on a single tank. So we'll do a top up on fuel, but we won't need to change tyres as they will go the full race distance. Just quickly before we actually get rolling and underway with the very short formation lap that leads into the rolling start, down in the description below is links to my social media channels and also my Discord. It'd be very much appreciated if you go and follow me there, and if you want to join in the conversation talking about the videos and sim racing in general, just want to ask me or other people who are involved in the conversation, it'll be awesome to have you come along and join us as well. But here we go then, back to the video. We are just about to get the green light as we're doing a little bit of brake warming here. But there is the green light, so we are underway racing and just need to take it fairly steady coming through these last couple of corners to begin the lap, because obviously everyone's all in close proximity. But with that Porsche 911 now in front of us, we should be clear to take the apex, although slight little wiggle from the car, so kind of lost a little bit of momentum. We've got Frank Bieler, the Audi LMP driver, and I believe he's also done DTM as well, sat there right behind me, but coming through turn 2 and out the exit of that we've got a Ford GT spinning off to the left there. Not entirely sure why he ended up spinning, because it didn't look like he was doing anything particularly wrong, but we'll take that freebie and see what we can do about the RSR that's here in front of us. Obviously there's a little bit of a gap between Ahmed and Sandro, who's up ahead at the back of the bigger trainer cars. Obviously want to try and keep up with the race leaders, so hopefully the gap doesn't continue to extend as we come quite nicely through Brooklands. No issues there, the cars up in front battling away side by side coming through Luffield. It's going to allow us to close up a little bit more, which is quite nice. Frank is holding on to the rear of our car as well, just lurking and waiting for a prime opportunity. Try and make a move coming into Stone now. Just a little bit of understeer, front end washing out, not quite biting as much as I would have liked to have done there, hence why I ended up running out wide and then picking up a 1X doing that as well. But that's put me on a slight back foot with Frank closing up behind. But coming through Maggots and Beckett's here, we've got a much better run than the RSR in front of us. If we can get the good drive coming off, we can get in that slipstream and see if we can potentially make a move, which is exactly what we're doing. So here we go then, pulling out from underneath the rear wing, which he goes and covers off pretty late. Had to back out the throttle there to avoid making contact with him. We're on the outside on the entry to Stowe, but we're going to go for the switchback, hoping that he does go deep, which indeed he does. So we're going to be up alongside him now, coming into the last few turns here at Silverstone. Going to try and do the move under braking and around the outside here. It will give me the inside line for the right hander, which we managed to get there at the apex, having to hold it a little bit tight on the exit to avoid making contact with him. But coming through the final turn, managed to get the move finally done and dusted. Flash of the lights from him, so he wasn't too particularly happy with me making that move, but it was all fair game. We both gave each other enough racing room and the space was there and open, so I went for it. Although quite a big lock up here coming into Village, just about managing to get the car slowed down enough, but that's going to put me right back under pressure from Ahmed behind. As you can see all over the rear bumper, although we managed to get a good drive coming off the exit of the loop there, and has given us some breathing room. He's now got Frank to deal with. He's applying the pressure, but of course those moves and that little mistake there in turn 3 has gone and lost me some ground to the guys up in front, so we need to try and focus, keep our eyes looking forward and see if we can close back up onto the rear of Sandro, who's there in P11. We've gained 2 places on the opening lap, one obviously a freebie, the other one was move going through the last few corners. But just going to try and settle into a bit more of a rhythm, this time much neater and tidier coming through Cops Corner, keeping it within the track limits as well, so no 1Xs this time. Now coming into Mags and Beckett's, looking to try and again get another good run through here. A little bit deep coming out the exit of Maggots and into Beckett's there. But we managed to line ourselves up for a fairly decent run coming off the exit and into Chapel. However, we have lost a couple attempts or a tempo or so to the guys in front. So I just need to settle down and avoid making the little mistakes. And obviously Ahmed behind, looking to try and apply the pressure as well and keep me distracted. Fortunately, the two Ford GTs here in front are kind of fairly close together. They're losing touch to the yellow 911 RSR up ahead. It's the sizable gap starting to form between them now, which is 9th and 10th position. So seems like the leaders got some pretty good legs on them and starting to stretch and run off into the distance somewhat. But if I can keep with these two guys, I'll be fairly happy. Hopefully do a little bit of fuel saving ready for the race. And I think there may have been a little bit of contact between Ahmed and Frank behind, as Ahmed spun off and out the picture, and it's now Frank that's behind, but he's 1.6 seconds off the tail of my car now. Down into Brooklands, just shy of the apex there. Now coming into Luffield, just dropping it down into first gear. Just to try and get that extra little bit of rotation from the car to line up a better exit. Car sounding absolutely fantastic. Nice and patient coming through Cops, getting back on the throttle there after making the apex. Hopefully this time we can have a slightly better run coming through Mags and Beckett's this time. Up all over the curbs, hammering those, and making full use of the width of the track and the legal limits that iRacing allows here. Again, a fairly good run onto the straight, and we're actually up on our previous fastest lap. You can see just about at the bottom of the screen, maybe. Depends which way the steering wheel is being turned. When it's turning to the left, you'll be able to see the seg diff, which is the basically the time that I'm up or down on the previous fastest lap. Despite being up this time round, losing touch a little bit to the two Ford GTs in front. Frank's just over a second behind now. 57.1 on the previous lap. We're looking to continue to try and improve those. The lights there on the dash flashing up all sorts of colours, indicating that the wheels are locking up under braking. Of course, the GTE cars have traction control, but they don't have ABS, so the wheels will under rotate under braking if I brake too hard. Put a little bit too much steering input in at the same time as well. But yeah, the yellow and purple flashes are indicating that the wheels are slipping, either under braking or in the traction zones as well. I believe it's they flash blue in the traction zones, and the traction control kicks in. Purple and yellow indicate the front and rear brakes locking up. Trying to push a little bit there. Coming through Stowe, very much aware that I'm losing ground to the guys in front, and also Frank is starting to close up as well. He's found his pace and rhythm. Obviously not had the best of time in qualifying because he qualified behind us, but he's got pretty good race pace here. I've never been particularly great at qualifying. It's one of my weakest areas. I usually do and fare much better in the races and end up having to basically make the positions that should have been starting ahead, yeah, from the qualifying session. Just about managed to get my words out there. So here we go, beginning lap 5. You can now hear Frank behind. It's within half a second. Very much see him there in the rear view mirror, or virtual mirror at the top of the screen. No doubt at some point probably end up having him finding his way past, going way too deep under braking there. struggling a little bit. He's there on the outside, coming out through the exit of the loop though, getting the car caught up on the grass, which wasn't intentional. I didn't actually mean to let Frank go through there, but might as well let him go sooner rather than later to try and use some of his pace to close up onto the back of the guys in front if I possibly can, although being pretty bad and fairly slow, or shall I say miles away from the apex, going through Brooklands, and just saw a car that spun off at the entry to Luffield as well, so that's a position regained. Obviously lost the position to Frank, then regained that 12th position again with the that Ford GT having spun and being parked off there on the grass. Frank's already starting to pull a bit of a gap, as you can see, over the course of the last few corners, pulling out a few car lengths. Hopefully we can stick with him coming through Maggots and Beckett's. Maggots look pretty good, but Beckett's wasn't the most ideal of lines going through the left-hander. Could have been tighter and more up over the curb, and you can see the time that's gone and cost me as well. Frank's almost pretty much pulled the gap out to a second now as we're coming into Stowe, so he's got some serious pace, and I'm struggling to keep up with him here. Just don't quite have the confidence under braking. It's a little bit awkward, the braking here in iRacing. I find you can't really go above 60-70% braking application, otherwise you end up locking up the brakes no matter how much downforce the car has. Always been taught, get hard on the brakes, do as much of your braking as early as you possibly can when the tyres are nicely loaded up and you've got the downforce available there as well on your side, and then obviously as the speed bleeds off you need to ease up on the brakes, otherwise you end up overloading the tyres and they will start locking up on you. I have to take a very different approach here in iRacing. You have to be much more cautious getting onto the brakes, and kind of the less you do the better in some ways. Obviously that's only going to be up to a certain extent though, because you do need to slow the car down still. And yeah, with the recent tyre model changes as well, it's okay on some cars, others aren't all that great. It entirely depends on the circuit. I think from what I've heard from other people within the iRacing community, the less downforce there is on the car, the better the new tyres feel. The higher downforce cars feel rather odd and seem to be really lacking in terms of support from the sidewall on the tyres. Also feels like the rear end is a little bit disconnected from the front end, which is what Dave Perel has said a number of times in the past, and I kind of very much agree with him in that sort of sense. Seems like no matter how much downforce the rear of the car is producing, it still wants to easily break away from you. So hopefully iRacing can fix that here around this circuit around Silverstone. The Porsche with this setup that I'm using feels pretty good, although gone and locked up the brakes there and the rear end of the car just spinning round, so trying to rejoin onto the track as quickly and as safely as I possibly can. It won't impede that Ford GT there. Unfortunately for ourselves, there was a gap between him and the trio of cars behind, so we were able to rejoin there, but yeah, just a bit of an unusual lock up there. Rear end of the car just wanting to rotate round, even though it didn't really seem to be doing anything particularly wrong. Possibly just yeah, got a little bit too heavy on the brakes here for these tyres, and lock them up, and then trying to turn as well at the same time, turn into the corner. Obviously the rear unloaded and around it came. So yeah, there's some criticisms floating around with the tyre model at the moment, but hopefully iRacing can get it sorted and fixed fairly soon. And as I'm saying, a 911 RSR here on this set doesn't feel too bad at Silverstone, but since recording this video I haven't tried Spa, and yeah, not particularly enjoying driving the GTE cars there around that circuit, so I haven't done any races this week for the IMSA series. Again, running a little bit wide there, now up to 4 X's in terms of our safety rating. Obviously we had the 1X on lap 1 there in Stowe. That's the second off track that I've had, and then lost a 2x from the spin, the end of the previous lap. So we have 17 that we can go up to before we get a, I believe it is a stop and go penalty. Used to be a disqualification, but I believe it's now just a stop and go. But obviously I want to avoid reaching that total of 17 safety rating point hits. Not entirely sure what they're actually called when you're in the session. Obviously it affects the safety rating, but it's obviously you get your 1x, 2x and 4x, but as a cumulative thing, I'm not entirely sure on the terminology for that. We've got our GT3 car here that's quite nicely getting out of our way, coming through village and the loop. So obviously IMSA runs the Corvette C7 DP prototype, Daytona prototype, a GTE class and then the GT3 cars. So we'll come across the GT3 traffic a bit later on. Obviously there was one straggler there, probably pitting for damage earlier on, and that's a 4GT. Losing the car there, coming through Brooklands and awkwardly spinning off to the right hand side. I think he managed to recover back onto the circuit fairly quick, but that's gifted us the 13th position. Though we got Marcus not too far off the rear of our car now as well. He closed up a little bit, gained a few car lengths there. So obviously saw the forward spinning in front and wanted to try and give myself as much time as possible to try and take avoiding action if I needed to. Thankfully he did spin off to the right hand side, but it did cost me time as well. We've got a half decent run there through Maggots and Beckett's. 0.4 seconds to Marcus, so he's fairly close. 0.3 as he's picking up the slipstream now, but it's going to be just a little bit too far back to try and make the move here into Stowe. Did try and present himself in the mirrors and try and distract me a little bit, but didn't really work. Still made the apex, although picked up the 1x there on the exit. But nice and easy does it. Coming through Vale, now into Club, the final corner. Just need to have my wits about me with Marcus behind, and P15 Roger's not too far off the back of him either, so yeah, very much kind of in a defensive situation here at the moment. Not close enough to be picking up the slipstream off the back of DDA and coming off the exit. Oh, that's actually a couple of cars spinning there, a little bit of contact. This Porsche rejoining the circuit a little bit dangerously, off on the dirt there, picking up a 1x, but we haven't got a 4GT trying to threaten the position coming into Brooklands here, so we'll take the defensive line in and keep him behind, but had a pretty poor run through the loop, which allowed the other 4GT to close up behind me, but fortunately the two cars in front spinning basically gave me an opportunity to hold on to that position, but seemed that Roger got an absolutely monstrous run coming off the loop and wasn't really affected by the cars in front spinning and managed to gain a position and tried to take ours as well, but wasn't having any of that. It's too far back to warrant him the racing room, but it's looking pretty close and looking a little bit aggressive and feisty in the mirrors. The car's switched on him a couple of times. A couple of times he has gone fairly close to our rear bumper. So coming down the hanger straight here, he's obviously in the slipstream. Going to need to position the car a little bit defensive. He goes and looks to the inside, but I'm going to give him the racing room on the apex there. Running out a little bit wide and picking up the 1x on the exit. I'm going to be defensive again here, just holding my line, positioning the car in such a way that makes it him a little bit more difficult, and him kind of doubting about putting the move on. Make him have to work to get around me and get the position. So we're now in P11 with those two freebies on the previous lap. Still very much lurking there as we come into Village now. Slightly defensive line coming in once again, blocking his run up the apex. bit deep there coming through the loop, but fortunately we managed to take away the acceleration zone from him. So that's gone and cost him a little bit of momentum, just giving us a little bit of breathing room, but we can't breathe too easy. It's going to be very much there, so again position ourselves defensive for the inside line coming here into Brooklands. Forcing him to have to go the long way around if he wants to take the position there. Just got to hold it tight coming through here in Luffield. She managed to do so. Rear end wanted to step out a little bit. Quick flick of opposite lock solved that, and also the traction control system helped us out there a little bit as well. So yeah, very much feeling like I'm on the defensive at the moment from Roger behind. Just costing a little bit of time to the car in front, but not an absolutely massive amount, especially if we can get somewhat decent lines coming through Maggots and Beckett's there. It's allowed us to eke out a car length or two. Just give us a little bit more breathing room coming down the hanger straight this time. He's starting to close up now in the slipstream, but he's not close enough to go for the move, so I'm just going to take my usual line coming in. We've got a slow car overhead. It's being pointed out by the spotter, but they've rejoined back onto the circuit before we've got to them, so unfortunately no freebie there. Okay run through Vale and Club. Just over 2 seconds to Joshua in front, so I think we gained a little bit of time in the final sector there, probably because of the spinning car rejoining back onto the circuit. Neater and tidier this time, coming into turn 3, now turn 4, again a bit tidier and closer to the apex than I was on the previous lap. And that slightly better run through those corners as opposed 0.13 of a second up on our previous fastest so far, and also giving us a little bit of breathing room to the car behind. So we take our usual line coming into Brooklands. Same again through Luffield. He's closed up a little bit in the mid corner with the kind of accordion effect that you get with the braking and acceleration zones. Pull a slight gap. He's not close enough for the move here into Copse, which is quite a difficult place to overtake, but we've gone deep on the exit, taking another 1x there, so we're now on 8 out of 17, which is far from ideal. Taking a lot of curb there, coming through Maggots. Really trying to get the line right and get a good run out through Beckett's as well to try and help defend Roger, who's there. 0.2 seconds. He's got the slipstream, so he'll be closing up on the approach here to Stowe. Once again, he looks to the inside, but he's not close enough, doesn't have the overlap to really make the move. So just take the usual line and close the door on him there. It's all about trying to keep a level head in these kind of situations, making sure that you're not defending too hard, and that when you are defending, you're making your intentions fairly clear. Difficult for the other driver to obviously overtake you. Obviously, if I was to be defending really hard into every single corner, we'll end up losing heaps of time to the car in front, who we're obviously trying to keep up with and also try and catch. So trying to pick the real moments where the car behind is really close enough to go for a move, such as here. He's going to be very close coming out the exit of Aintree that we've just gone through there, that left-handed kink, so he's going to have the slipstream coming down this straight. But at this point I'm basically trying to read how much he's closing up and whether he's going to be close enough to make the move under braking, but I'm feeling pretty confident coming here into this corner, so just end up taking my usual line going in, and he wasn't really able to get up alongside. Was therefore able to hold onto the position. So yeah, it's kind of having that level of experience and the level-headedness to really pick the moments as to when to make a defensive move and kind of compromise your own line to hold on to the position. But at the same time, in longer races like this, you kind of almost want to not try and battle and fight too hard, because you end up losing time to other cars. Some scenarios it is beneficial to let the faster driver go through and try and use them to catch or close up with other cars. That was just a silly little mistake there coming through Chapel. really trying to push on the exit of Beckett's and kind of caught the grass there, which is unnecessarily threw away a 1x. And there's a spin there from Roger, so obviously he's been getting a little bit flustered and frustrated, not really able to find a way past me, and has gone and made a mistake because of it. So that's completely released all the pressure that was sitting on my shoulders with him sat on my rear bumper from behind. And now I've got a 2-second gap to the next car behind me, so I can focus on trying to catch Josiah up in front and try and hunt down that that P10. Not too far off having to make a pit stop either. If you're fairly eagle-eyed, you may have heard the spotter and also saw the subtitles saying that I've got about 5 laps of fuel remaining. Usually gives that call when you've got about 5.5 laps of fuel remaining, and he'll give another reminder on your fuel load when you get to about 2.5 laps remaining as well. So pit stops are looming. Just taking a look there at the quick look at the display on the steering wheel. So obviously with the FOV that I'm running here, don't get to see the entirety of all the information, just the kind of the stuff on the top half of the wheel, and the odd little snippets that you can get here and there when I'm turning the wheel as well. So that's going to be the overall race leader coming into the pits, one of the Corvette DP drivers. So it's not the GTE leader, unless all the Corvette DP drivers have retired, then it will be the GTE leader. I think there was only 2 DPs here in this race, but I didn't ever end up seeing them other than them pulling away at the very beginning behind the safety car. So nice and smooth through the final turn. Lapping the mid 57s. Not the best pace. Quickest drivers tend to be in and around the 55s, low 56s, so struggling here a little bit in this race in comparison to a lot of others. But obviously there's dynamic weather. Temperatures fluctuate up and down a reasonable amount, and as you can see it's kind of towards sunset, I believe this is. So the sun is obviously sinking down lower into the sky, and the conditions will be cooling off as the race goes on. So it starts quite warm. Sometimes the track temperature starts off quite hot, shall I say. So we're keeping kind of semi-equal pace to P10 in front. Really lost too much time. The relative board fluctuating up and down in various spots, but it seems to be in and around the 2.2 to 2.4 second gap ahead. Though a little bit deep there coming into Beckett, so you can see trying to put in a whole bunch of steering lot to try and get the car round, whilst also trying to keep the speed up as well. Really scrubbing the front tyres, which isn't ideal, be taking the life out of those. Oh, the rear end of the car just wanting to start to wander a little bit. See me correcting the steering wheel a fair amount there, and also the lights up on the dash also flashing as well. We got one of the GT3 cars having just come out of the pit lane here, but Josiah has managed to clear him fairly quickly before they go into the braking zone for Village. I think it actually may have taken him at the apex down the inside there. So he hasn't really lost too much time trying to get past that GT3, whereas so I've still got the gap to try and close up, and then also find the opportune moment to pass safely as well. Slower class traffic is entitled to hold their line. They don't need to move out of the way unless we are there up alongside. So it's down to me to pick the best moment effectively, but with more grip through the corners, more downforce, despite running out wide there. Be quicker through the turns, and this isn't ideal, being caught up on the rear of the Audi coming through Maggots and Beckett's. This is one of those places where the GTE car can really carry a fair bit more speed and gain a fair amount of time over a GT3. And as you saw, going slightly slower through there, it's cost me a bit of time to Josiah up in front. Not too much though, which is quite nice. Still, it would have been nice if I closed up onto the back of the GT3 car on a straight rather than through those sequence of corners.
You're in the top 10.
So obviously a few GTE cars making their pit stops. It's now got me up into the top 10. Fuel up there, just to double check how much I have left in the tank, how much I'm going to be adding here in this pit stop. Now onto a straight, we get a little bit of time to kind of calculate the fuel. I was in Discord at the time, and one of my teammates was observing my race, watching from the spectator view, and he was doing the fuel calculations for me. And that little glance down that I had was me taking a look to see what my average fuel usage per lap is and reporting it to him. But the fuel number that he reported back was 25 litres, which is the same as what I had already queued up for the pit stop, so didn't need to make the change. This is quite good for us. Car in front, caught up behind the GT3 coming through Maggots and Beckett's here. Hopefully we can gain a bit of time, although we're a little bit deep and shy of the apex there. Coming through the right-hander. So didn't quite gain all the time that we were hoping to. It's actually side-by-side going down the hanger straight here into Stowe's. That's going to compromise his run coming into this fast right-hander here. Now coming into the pits. Onto the brakes, getting the car slowed down for the line. We've got 24 litres queued up. Apologies, I thought it was 25, so I may have made the change. You can see I've got estimated 1 lap of fuel remaining, but it would literally be chugging coming down the pits here, especially as it's now just ticked over to 0.9, so I would need to do some fuel saving. There is my lollipop guy. I knew he was lurking around here somewhere, but quite difficult to see through the car at times. Shift it in the first gear, ready to go. Then we get released. So hopefully we can gain a little bit of time here. Almost clipping the wall as well, trying to open up the pit exit. I think I may have actually just caught the pit wall, but it didn't give me any damage or anything like that. But unfortunately for us, we've come out behind 2 GT3 cars, which is far from ideal. And we've got Marcus now as well, who pitted a lap or 2 ago, pretty much right there, half a second behind. So I want to try and clear at least one of these 2 GT3 cars here on the straight. So we'll get the Audi. I doubt we'll get the Mercedes unless he hangs out wide here coming into the braking zone, which he looks like he's going to do. So I'm going to take that space and slip on through, but at the same time I was a little bit unsure as to whether he was going to give me the room or not, so I was kind of half hesitant to take it initially, which has cost me a little bit. It would have cost me a little bit. Fortunately, Marcus tried to make the move in the same place and was also slightly compromised. So now we've got to try and push and see if we can close up to Josiah, who we left when we dived into the pit lane. We're in around 2 seconds off the back of him in the previous lap, so hopefully if we can have a good outlap here, hopefully we would have gained a little bit of time through the pit stop phase, and hopefully we'll be fairly close to him. Basically at this point aiming to be in the top 10. Again, running out a little bit wide. A few silly little 1Xs being given away here and there over the last lap or so. Which is putting me closer to getting that stop and go penalty, and Marcus there spinning, coming through Vale as well, which is unleashed the pressure from my shoulders once more as he was closing up. Here we go, coming through turn 1. There is Josiah just coming out of the pit lane. We're certainly closer than we were previously when we went into the pits, but obviously not close enough to make the move and going a little bit deep there, coming into turn 3. Got a GT3 car just up in front, but Josiah will clear him relatively easy, and we'll clear him as well fairly easy coming down this straight. So we'll slip on by, although we won't be able to make full use of the track width here coming into Brooklands. Obviously the multi-class traffic now starting to come into play, which is quite nice, allowing us to close up on the other cars around us. But it looks like we're in P11 overall. Car understeering coming through cops there once again, and we're giving away another 1X, which isn't good. We're now basically in the region of if we have significant car contact with another car, that'll be us getting a penalty, so we're going to need to start playing it real cautious now for the remainder of the race. Moving across to pick up the slipstream off the GT3 car as he's closer than the Ford was, but he was very slow coming here into Stowe, closed right up on him, and once again another 1X given away, trying to go around the outside of him and carrying the speed and momentum that it gained. So 3 X's left here in this race. There goes another one as the car's a little bit squirrely coming through the final turn. So now we're only 2 away. We've got our work cut out for us to try and keep it safe for the remainder of the race. It's now showing that we are in the top 10 as well. So it's going to be a tricky balance here, trying to keep pushing and running the pace, see if I can keep with Josiah, and see if I can potentially try and get 9th place off him before the end of the race. But also balancing the fact that I need to play it fairly safe and cautious now and not give away any more 1Xs, because very much on the brink of picking up a penalty very soon. Continue to be as careless and as reckless as I have been. See Frank Bieler on the relative there, up in P8, 9 seconds up the road. Hunting down Ascari in front of him. Half decent run there through Maggots and Beckett's, but you can certainly see that the grip has fallen away from the tyres at this stage. I'm going to put in a fair bit more steering lock than I would like to, and probably should be putting in as well. It's probably not helping the tyre situation and scrubbing some life out of them. Oh, slight lock up there from the inside left. Managing to keep it on the track though, but of course we're going to lose a whole bunch of time here. As you can see, gap now extended to just over 2 seconds. It was just double checking real quick there the amount of time remaining in the race, which was just under 7 minutes remaining, so got the fuel to go to the end. So Andrew, my I guess my engineer for this race, has got his maths right on the fuel calculations. We've got another GT3 car up, just up in front. That your side is cleared. We need to get past fairly soon. We need to try and keep the rear end of the car in check first before we get to him though. Dropping down one more gear. Just hoping to try and get the run off the exit of Cops there to pass. Fortunately for us, he lifts out and lets us go through before we get into the entrance to Maggots, which is very kind of him. Again, trying to push it through Maggots and Beckett's a little bit there. So he's starting to pull away. Over the course of the last few laps, it's got the gap to over 2 seconds. I want to still, if I can, try and keep it relatively close, just in case he does make a fairly significant mistake. I could be there close enough to capitalise on. So I don't want to let him pull away too much. Of course, with only 2x to spare before getting a penalty, that's very much in the forefront of my mind. And if you've been keeping an eye on the relative, you probably also noticed that Jesse behind has got the gap down to around 2 seconds now. It was previously up over 3 seconds a few laps ago. So the cars behind starting to close up onto the rear of me as well. Obviously only a little bit of time remaining in the race, so they haven't got long to do it, but hopefully they won't close up too quickly. A mistake there coming through Brooklands, meters shy of the apex. It's not going to help my cause in trying to keep with your sire and also hold on to this 10th place. They're starting to close up at a more rapidly increasing rate. Very, very close there to picking up a 1x on the exit of Cops. I just didn't rotate through the corner as much as I would have liked, and I think I picked up the throttle a little bit too hard and a little bit too early. As you saw, I had to take multiple stabs at it to prevent the car from running out wide over the exit curb, which is really going to cost me some time now. 1.2 seconds is Jesse behind, so he'll be starting to pick up a little bit of slipstream down these straights now. At that distance, the effect is going to be very, very minor, but it's going to be slightly there as well. Car just struggling a little bit under braking now, coming into a heavy braking zone of Vale. Alright, running through the final turn though. Been trying to be nice and smooth here, coming through turns 1 and 2. Not quite rotating as much as I would have liked at the apex of 3. Just carrying just a little bit too much speed going in towards the apex, forcing me deep on the exit. Better run through Brooklands that time. Luffield I haven't really had any trouble through during the race. Again, just another quick check to see how much time is remaining. And there's 2 minutes. And I've got about 3 laps worth of fuel. I think it was. I just saw that on the relative as well. So we've got the fuel for the remainder of the race. Don't need to worry about that. It's more just double checking to see how much time I've got left to kind of work out how many more laps we're going to be doing, and as to whether, at the rate that Jesse is closing up behind, whether Jesse will come up to the rear of my car and potentially being with a chance of trying to make an overtaking opportunity, whether I need to go defensive or not. Obviously with this GT3 car in front, I'm going to try and get past him as soon as possible, locking up again under braking there coming into Vale. Just going to put me well offline, and now Jesse is right there as we're coming in, I believe, for the last 2 laps of the race. We didn't get the white flag that time coming round. We need to try and pass this GT3 car as soon as possible, so we're going to try and do it under braking here coming into turn 3. So getting the car slowed down enough through Rigo, but both Jesse and Ahmed behind also going through at the same time. Not the best of runs through turn 4 in the loop there. Turned in a little bit too early initially. So I need to be careful here. Can't really make any major mistakes, otherwise I'll lose this 10th position. Oh, a little bit deep there. Jesse really closing up in the mid corner. Rear end starting to want to slide a little bit under acceleration. So just a small little tweak there to the traction control. Just turning it down to setting 4. The lower the number, the stronger the traction control is. There's 2 settings on this car as well. You've got the traction control cut and the traction control rate, I believe. The cut basically determining how much the traction control system will allow the tyres to slip. So effectively when the traction control system kicks in, and the traction control rate will control how strong the traction control system is once it does kick in. A little bit deep there coming through Stowe, which isn't good, especially coming into a braking zone into Vale. So there's a passing opportunity.
You just got the white flag. That means 1 more lap to go.
Coming through. Hold on to it for the moment, but we've got 1 more lap to go here in this race. Just over a lap of fuel as well, so we got that pretty much spot on. I just need to try and hold on to this 10th position now and try and keep Jesse behind. Certainly seems like Ferrari is the stronger car of the 2 at this point. Really struggling a little bit, as you can see. Traction control lights lighting up there on the exit of turn 3. Jesse is certainly close, so going to be moving over to the left-hand side of the circuit here to defend the inside line. As he's gone for the outside, we're going to move back across a little bit just to try and open up the corner for ourselves. We defend the position for now. A flash of lights from him, obviously not too happy there, but perfectly entitled to do what I did, providing a left of car's width of room on the outside, which I did. That's a rather precariously spun GT3 car rolling back onto the circuit. Coming through Stone, nice, neat and tidy, but we haven't closed up onto the back of the GT3 car as much as I would have liked. We've got a slow GT3 car coming up here as well. This could get really dicey. Fortunately for us, that slow GT3 car was there at the apex just as Jesse was coming in, so we need a good run coming off the exit here. We need to try and pick up the slipstream off of this Audi and try and defend from Jesse coming into Stowe. Coming down this straight, not quite passing this Audi as quickly as I would have liked to have been, but we're going to try and defend from Jesse here. But fortunately for us, the Porsche who was behind him has gone and try and nip the position instead. Slipped on through, so that's taken Jesse out of the equation for us, and as he's been a little bit sideways on the exit there and lost the traction off the turn, that's gone and given us the breathing room that we need for the last couple of turns, and we will hold on to this 10th position as we come across the start finish line. Fairly relieved and happy with that one, and yeah, Jesse not too happy with that Porsche taking him out there. So if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like, Let us know down in the comment section below as well what you thought of my defensive driving. I thought I was fair, didn't move too many times, but please give your opinion as to whether I was fair or not. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. It'll be awesome to have you on board and enjoying the future content that I put up here on the channel. But until the next video, thanks very much for watching. Have fun, stay safe, and take care.